Hi, welcome to How to D&D. My name is Fred Weller, and today I want to talk about Dungeons & Dragons. Specifically, I want to talk about Session 0 for my Dragon of Icespire Peak campaign. This is a Dungeon Master guide, but you could watch it if you were a player because it has a lot of very useful information. So there are a number of different things that I discussed when I was doing my Session 0 for Dragon of Icespire Peak, and the first thing is I talked about the Dungeon Master expectations. What did I expect? The things I expect from my players are teamwork by them, fun, and I want them to make my life easier. I then talked about the players' expectations. I asked them what they expected from the game, and this is what they told me. They said they wanted to be able to play through and role-play social interactions. They wanted a mixture of combat, social interactions, and exploration, and they wanted to have individual goals and a common goal. We discussed the location about where we will actually play the game, so that was determined, and of course we had to decide and commit to a time and how often we would play. In this case, we selected a place by the sea and would go there each week to play at about 7 p.m, and it was on a Saturday because that was the time that worked for everybody. I always talk about character death in Session 0 nowadays because I think character death is a very important thing. We need to make sure everybody is on the same page. I explained to my players they don't need to make a new character if they want to keep playing the same character. If they want to make a new character, they can. If they can't bring the character back because they don't have access to abilities or spells or magic items that would bring the character back to life, that's fine. I would allow their character back into the game and their character would get a complication. So I give them a complication that they could remove by doing something in the campaign. Players decide what happens to the character when the character dies, not me. I explained to my players how I was going to do character advancement. I selected milestones over experience points because it's less work. I also explained to my players they could retrain their characters if they wanted to. That was available to them. They could do that outside of game time, either before the game started or after the game finished, and they could change everything apart from the name of the character and their starting gear or the gear they had collected. We talked about magic items because you usually have to talk about that. What are the things that we want to do with magic items? I did not really want to have them making or buying magic weapons or crafting in the game. I made that quite clear. They said they wanted a magic shop, so I had to create something for that. I decided and explained to them if they found a magic shop, it would be full of consumable magic items, not permanent magic items. They had to find those. We discussed the group rules, the code of behavior expected at the table. And the code of behavior that I expect at my table has always been that you don't mess with somebody else, okay? I don't care about the campaign, I don't care about the characters, I only care about the integrity of the group. So that means you have to be nice to each other, you have to agree on things, okay? You can't do things that annoy somebody else. We talked about the system or game that we're going to use, which of course was Dungeons & Dragons 5e in this case. I also talked about how I would run combat. I would be using a mixture of battle maps and theatre of the mind when I was running any kind of combat, and it wouldn't necessarily be a battle map when they wanted it. I would probably pick the time when I thought it was going to work best. I also explained the campaign was probably going to be about from level 1 to level 10 and then I would finish. Unless, of course, they decided they wanted to continue, and at this point they have. I also discussed with my players about what sort of alignment would be in the game, and I said, I don't want you to make an alignment that is evil, so no evil characters, but I did also make it completely obvious to them and clear that it was possible that a character might become evil over time, particularly if the Dungeon Master had something that would meddle with their character. We discussed how we would determine attributes. I said standard array, point buy system was fine, but no rolling 4 dice and dropping the lowest. I didn't want to have dice rolling. It's very hard to check that, so I don't usually use that system. I also explained how we would determine hit points. Hit points were going to be the average. Now at first level, you're going to get all of your hit points. It's maximum, okay, plus your constitution modifier. But after that, it was going to be the average plus your constitution modifier, no rolling dice for hit points. We were starting at level 1, so I said they could use the starting wealth or gear in the player's handbook, or just use the money value that is determined at level 1 for their character class. I asked all of the players to come up with a common background or an unbreakable loyalty, okay? Some sort of common goal that they all had, and they could not break that loyalty in any way. I did not want a spanner in the works. I also asked all of the players to link their characters to at least one or two other characters in the party. I didn't want strangers running around the country together. We then discussed how to integrate their characters into the world, so I had to give them some information about the world and adventure, or at least the beginning of the adventure, so it would work. Now we also discussed the character sheet. I said, look, I want a paper copy character sheet. I don't need to hold it myself, but I want you to have a paper copy. You can certainly put it on a phone or an app of some kind, that's fine, but there must be a paper copy. And why did I do that? I do that because I find that people will show up with a phone that's flat or forget their phone, and it gives them two different versions of their character sheet rather than just one version, which might be digital. Everybody sat around the table and determined what each character role would be, or whether they needed to cover all the character roles in the first place. We then discussed some optional roles. What optional roles could we use? Now, I actually approached them and said, can we please not use multi-classing and feats from the player's handbook? And they were like, we don't like that idea, we want to keep them. Now, they've been playing a long time. It didn't work for them, so that's what we wound up doing. We had multi-classing and feats available. The last discussion was around source books. Now, what sort of source books was I going to allow, and what source books did they want to use? Because I didn't want to use everything. So I said yes to the player's handbook, anything in there. Xanathar's Guide to Everything, that was fine. I did say no to Elven Accuracy. I found that's far too good as a feat. The Booming Blade cantrip was included because somebody wanted to use it, including the Green Flame Blade cantrip, so that was in there as well. Somebody wanted to play an Aasimar race, so I said yes to that, because usually I don't say no to races. And somebody also wanted to play a Tabaxi, so we included that in our options. One of the discussions that came up, and people were quite confused at my table as to why I would do this, and I said, look, I want to get rid of the Grappler's Feat. I don't want to use it. I want to remove it completely from the player's handbook. We're just going to ignore it completely. And they said, well, what if we want to actually grapple and restrain somebody? And I said, well, now you can, because the Grappler's Feat is gone. So now you can do that. You're going to do a grapple check, and then after you've done your grapple check, you can try to lock them in and pin them by doing the same thing, using the same mechanic, but the only difference is you will be able to restrain them rather than just stop their movement. Now, over time, the source books have changed. We have also included any of the races from Tasha's Cauldron of Everything and any background from any source book. I was quite happy with that. Now you can see how my Session 0 looked with regard to Dragon of Icespire Peak and the sorts of things we discussed. Now, you might discuss different things, but these are the things that we felt were most important. Now, I have a live stream video that goes into this in a lot more detail. If you're interested in watching that, you could. If you like this content, fantastic. I have hundreds of videos for players and dungeon masters you are welcome to go and check out. If you want to support the channel so I keep doing video content like this, you can through Patreon, the Amazon affiliate links down in the description, the merchandise shelf underneath all of my videos, or just watch my videos. Make sure to share, like, and subscribe. Hit the bell button to be notified when I go live, and I go live every week and when I publish new videos. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s.